Hello, welcome to the Piapot Future Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Conroy Obi from Piapot First Nation. Today we'll be speaking with Jayleen Francis. She is currently running for council in the 2024 elections. This podcast is designed to create a platform for candidates to introduce themselves to all voters as a way to understand their vision for the community. All candidates who are running for chief will be given 75 minutes. All candidates who are running for council will be given 1 hour. We will be asking 8 to 11 pre selected questions that have been sent to the candidate in advance. We encourage respectful and constructive comments only. Welcome, Jayleen.
Dante Gakio, Gisika Isqueo, Netigason, Neheo Puatna, Otinia, Nikawe Jackie Francis, Notawe Jerry Francis, Nokom Lucy Francis, Gagete Jack Francis Namosom. Good day, everyone. I greet each and every one of you today. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jayleen Francis of Piapot First Nation. I introduced myself and my family lineage in our language. I just want to thank everyone who's been able to join us this evening or today, actually, on this podcast here. And I also want to give thanks to Conroy for giving us an opportunity and a space to be able to share with the audience our vision and our goals and what we see for the future of our nation. So,
Mm,
thank you very much, Conroy.
you're welcome.
Yeah. So a little
So,
bit. Oh, sorry.
yeah, no, go ahead. That was the question I was going to ask.
I was just going to go on a little bit about myself. So, again, my name is Jayleen Francis. I have a husband. His name is Joe Putra. Joe and I have been together for the last 17 years. We've been married for 11 years, and we have four beautiful children. My educational background is I hold an administration degree with a co-op designation. Uh, Previous to obtaining that administration degree, I have obtained a management studies diploma from SIIT, which was the start of my education and the love for the continued learning that I've been able to continue on with. My work experience is quite vast. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but some of the areas that I am quite proud of is I've been able to work in the corporate world during school because of the co-op designation that I had pursued. That allowed for me to go to school and then obtain the work experience for a semester, and then go back to school, obtain the work experience. So through that, I've been able to obtain a permanent position after I had completed my studies and obtained the degree. So I've worked in the corporate world for about 3.5 years. In that area, I did gain experience in the area of accounts payable, as well as community giving, corporate affairs. So even having the experience of working quite closely with Aboriginal affairs, which is what it was called at the time in the president.
Mm,
Yeah, so it was really such an amazing experience. So corporate giving was a big area that I quite very much enjoyed. However, that was just a term, but I managed to obtain permanent employment through internal audit. So with an internal audit, I have been able to obtain an certification through the Internal Audit Institute. So what I did during that time was I audited internal operations. At the time, I wasn't
wow.
on about the type of work that I was doing, but I also knew there was just something at me saying that you're here for a reason, you're learning something, and you're going to take something wherever. I don't know where it was going to go, but I stayed with it. It wasn't something that I really particularly liked, but what it did was it trained my mind also to observe and see risks and learning
Mm,
to provide recommendation on how to mitigate those risks, as well as development of report writing and listening, understanding policies and procedures. So that in-depth stuff that makes an overall impact on the entire operations of an organization. So that's where I honestly, after I thought about it years later, did I realize, wow, that was such an amazing experience. As much as I felt alone in my own little world, because as an auditor, you kind of are a little bit by yourself. But who would have known that I would have done such type of work? From there, I was headhunted to apply for a position at the University of Regina. So that is where I grew my passion for post secondary support to Indigenous students. So I worked
mm,
there for a total of 5 years and worked in different positions. I actually was very fortunate to be able to go into a role and develop that particular role, which provided support to first year Indigenous students to get them through. And the whole goal of that program was a um, retention and transition and retention. It ultimately was what it was, because what the university was finding was that a lot of students will start the school year off, but somewhere along the way they kind of taper off a little bit. So they were finding their enrollment numbers in the coming year were not as high. So it was always kind of something that happened in between. So I came in with this vision of, okay, I'm going to make this position or this program, which was very hard to fill with students. I'm going to make it to the point where it's going to have a waiting list. That was my goal. That was my personal goal, and then also to secure the funding through that. And so, with the ideas and thoughts were, let's secure the funding first of all, first and foremost. And how do we do that? Well, we need to make sure that we obtain our success measures. And what are our success measures? And that was seeing, at least my goal was an 80% retention with these students going into the second year of university. So I looked at the stats from the years previous and they were quite low. So I thought, what, I got to do something different here. I have to be able to, whatever it is, I gave it my all. I can go into detail on what those years looked like. I almost didn't have a life, but I mean, it was so worth it, because through that we were able to prove to the funder that this is a very needed role, a program for our students. We were able to secure the funding into a permanent funding program. That was one of my goals, and then also um, to increase the services through that particular program. So it was good. It was such a good experience during that time. And then I was requested to move on into another area, which is the area of housing. So now I was looking at the Indigenous students to provide support to the students that are coming from different areas of Saskatchewan. There was even one that came from Manitoba, providing them on-campus support to ensure that they too will become successful. So I took those concepts and the models and the ideas that was developed there and brought them to then the housing, which is resident services. I think that's what they used to call it, but now they call it housing. So that's where I applied those frameworks, and it was good. It was a really, really good program. It was only a term though, and then I went back to my other role.
I
Um,
like to I really like to hear that the candidates have that kind of background. Like my passion is the youth, so like I really like to hear, like, you're so youth driven, and you have experience with not only dealing with our First Nations from Treaty 4, but other First Nations coming from different communities, because I think it's good to have that ability to work with a diverse group,
mhm, mhm.
right? Because our nation is pretty diverse. So
Oh, absolutely. All come from all walks of life, regardless of being a band member or not. We all still have different experiences and different backgrounds, right?
yeah.
Um, so definitely, I think that helped build who I am. So from there, I was tapped on the shoulder. Hey, you should apply for this position. It was with Piapot. And I always knew that I would go back and work with the people, because I've
Mm.
lived out there my entire life. I was always so ever grateful and felt indebted to go back and work for people, because they paid for my funding. So that was my way of giving back to our people, our community, after I've obtained my certification, my degree, my diploma. Come back and bring that knowledge back to our
That's
community.
nice, giving back.
Yeah, absolutely. That was truly ingrained, not ingrained in me. It was just something I held. So I knew that I eventually was going to. I just didn't know it was going to be so early in my life. So I applied for the heck of it. I didn't think that I would necessarily have the ability or the experience to carry out a role such as the band administrator role. Um, but I did. I did very well in my interview, and I took on the role, and I did that for a little over 2 years in 2018. And during that time, I went through some major experiences, such as our water treatment plant burning down, like
Mm.
literally a month after starting, and I had to ask myself, what the heck am I doing here? Holy cow. Our
That's so
nation is in
stressful.
such crisis. Yeah, it was. It sure was. But you know what? We have such amazing people. We have such an amazing community. When it comes to those situations, it's so amazing to see our people come together and help each other out and be collective with what we need to achieve and what we're going to do. Everyone just pulls together, and that's something that I truly am very proud of. It wasn't too difficult. I mean, there was sleepless nights for about 3 weeks just to make sure that people had their water, because that's life. So,
Mm,
but the water treatment plant operators, the administration staff, the water haulers, even the septic, like just every aspect of our entire nation, the departments had to somehow maneuver through this crisis. And and our leadership at the time were very supportive to however that was going to look. And not only that, but we also had our partners that came from all different levels. So I'm kind of diverging a little bit, but I'm just indicating, kind of like, after that particular crisis, that I realized, man, I love our people, I love our
mm,
community. I will go to the depths of whatever that means to try and ensure that our people are provided the best that they possibly can. But I share that because that was kind of my make or break. Can I handle this? Can I handle working in this
yeah.
capacity? Right. And so it was good. It was a really good, humbling experience, that's for sure. Um, I did that role for the couple of years, and then I took a leave for a little bit. I think I had to come to a realization that there needed to be a bit of a rest period. It was a very demanding job. I had two little ones at the time. They were quite young. I
Mm,
left and I went to work with New Horizons. So that's owned by Nikanit First Nation. So it was nice to just take a step back and work outside for a little bit. And in that role, I did the property management actually and maintained their operations. So I did accounts payable, accounts receivable, and their payroll. Um, and got them through two audits. When I say two audits, it kind of fathoms me because I was there for 2 years to conduct their work for them, and it was a really good experience. It was kind of a little bit of a lonely experience because I was literally the only one maintaining all of that, because all of the work that needed to be done was outside of the actual office. But it was
mm,
okay. I did a lot of reflection. I did a lot of learning, a lot of growth during that time too. And then the post-secondary position became open at Piapot, and that was always a goal. There was always a little goal that when I first became a student with Piapot, I always thought, I'm going to be a student coordinator, a post-secondary student coordinator for Piapot. I'm going to do that. I am going to do that. And so I applied. I applied because, again, there was that meeting my passion, and that was to support post-secondary students, the program, and but not only just anybody's, it was now the Pipeline students. So I took that role very serious, in the sense that I just loved it. I really did make really good connections. Even this evening, got to connect with another two more students to see. Like, it's good connection, relations, so important. We have so much talent all over Indian country, and
mm.
to be able to meet with the individuals, um, and see how they're doing now is it's just such a good feeling, because it just feels like there's a bit of a pride in knowing that there was some support to the individual and where they are today, because ultimately that's going to support them and their family, and their empowerment that they've been instilled with is going to be a good 360 feeling. Maybe they come back to our community, maybe they come back and implement some of their development and their learning and their education and knowledge, right? Because I think that's the way we're going right now. Knowledge is
Yes.
power, right?
Yes. And, when people return back to the community, and they bring all of their education, and bring things back home, I think that's what strengthens our community. So it's nice to see that you're in support of that, and you try to encourage that. So that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, yes. So we'll start with the first question.
Sure. Okay.
So so what inspired you to run in this election? Like, what was like the big drive to say, you know what, I'm gonna do it? Besides, people obviously asking you to.
Oh, besides that, that was my answer. So, okay, it was really because people had inquired to see if I would really consider this. The question to me happened already the term before, and at that time I just laughed it off because I didn't feel that I had enough experience or knowledge to be sitting at a political level. There was a lot of learning that I knew that I needed to do. I was asked again this next term, and I actually took that question and the thought of it a little bit more serious because now I felt a little bit more confident in my experience working for the band and the levels of where I've been able to sit. And in the past recent, just being the acting band administrator in the last little while, did I come to realize that I think I've been around here long enough to know that I think I can do this. I know where our gaps are. I feel I know where my our gaps are and how to address that and how it's so necessary to have a really good functioning good team. I commend the current leadership right now and all that they've come to do. There's so much that I do look up to them and how that they've been able to maneuver through a lot of our challenges as the First Nation. Um, and I think with a different perspective to come in and hopefully that influence what I've seen, what I've been able to observe, on how we can address some of our challenges that we currently face, and having the intricate knowledge of the internal when it comes to the operations and administration side of things,
Yeah.
it plays a huge part on the bigger picture of everything, right? And so having that understanding, I think would be very beneficial to provide sound, good, positive recommendations.
Mm. It's
Mhm.
really nice to have a full 360 of the way everything operates. So,
Mhm.
understanding the administration side and then also understanding, the council side and how decisions are made. I think those are some of the things that make great leaders, you
Mhm.
know, to have a full understanding of all the processes.
Mhm.
So not only, the person sitting at the front desk, but also understanding what the chief needs and what everybody else needs in the community. I think that's great.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you.
So the second question, I feel like you've answered it through your introduction. It is, what experience makes you well suited for this role?
Well, in short, I think that my administration operational knowledge of working with Piapot um, will be very beneficial. But not only that, but also have a external experience with working with another First Nation as well.
Hmm.
Adds to that a little bit because then I can see outside of what we currently do and have a little bit of a comparison. What's working, what doesn't work. Um, and then also just understanding the different levels of government when it comes to First Nation. Also with my internal internal audit operations experience, I think that really helps as well to be able to identify, some of our challenges and provide recommendations moving forward as a whole, as a collective, right? I think that
Hmm.
it's more powerful when it becomes more collective and then being able to give that opportunity to educate and because today every day is so busy, 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 there's just not enough time in the day to address certain things. um, and our operations is huge. We've grown so significantly in the last little while. Our population has grown so significantly in the last 5 years, and it's gonna keep growing because you just imagine that just timesing each other more and more and more.
Everyone having babies and
Yes, right? That's exactly it. So I need everyone to slow down a little bit. Keep up. But
well,
yeah,
that's interesting. What is our current population? I never knew what that was.
well, we are sitting at 26,083.
No way.
Well, it's pretty high like that. Yeah, we're around the 26,000.
Wow. I would have never
2,600. Sorry,
expected that.
2,600. Sorry.
Okay, I was like thousand. I was like, damn, how many cousins I got?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good though. Growth is good for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll
And
go
then,
to. Oh,
oh, okay. I was going to add just a little bit more.
yeah,
Okay.
no problem.
That's okay. Um, I like to write. I've been able to write proposals. One thing that I'm very proud of is prior to obtaining funding for the youth center is I had submitted a proposal when we were under the FHQ CFS at that time, and they had requested for the reimbursements of a lot of the sports and recreation expenses that we've had. And through that, like I wrote this huge, big community plan and proposal on that. And so we did get a huge sum, which was the development of our youth center. And that was something growing up on the reserve my entire life, we needed a youth center. There were times when a group of us would just assemble, which was then the health center, which is now the band office, but we would assemble ourselves as young teenagers looking for something to do. So what we would do is we would do fundraisers. And at that time, we already thought it would be so awesome if we had a youth center to keep us busy, to keep us out of trouble. Not that I was ever in trouble, but but like there's a lot of downtime, and that was always a bit of an inspiration to me, that if I was ever in a role to be able to make that happen, I would. And not to say that it was ever me, because it's all about the people that you bring about, and it was the support of leadership. So at that time we had our previous chief at that time, and that was something that he was very adamant about, was let's get a youth center for our kids. So
Hmm.
that was one of that was the beginning part of that. So we do have a beautiful youth center. It is utilized by our high school at this time, but that's because the school is exploding right now, and it's at max capacity. We have to move the high school students to the youth center. So that's just right now. It's a temporary fix, but I know that in time we'll address that once we get our school expansion. So that's another goal that we have in place. The other thing too was applying for the capacity building for our CFS. So myself and Elaine Lavalley had applied for that funding to begin the process for capacity building in CFS. And we worked long hours to develop that entire proposal. And so we done everything possible. She did the work plans on it, and I did the other component piece on it and the community aspect, and we submitted. And when we got that approval for it, that was a huge celebration for us, for her and I, because we put in long hours. And so today we are now in the second year, is it going into the third year, with that capacity development, and we have our own CFS right now. We have prevention services. We've pulled away from FHQ CFS, and we can manage that. We have the capacity within, and we have amazing people working for us just to do the work for us. So those are some highlights that I do want to bring out on some of the work that I've come to do, because it does take a lot of time and effort. So there's that, and then also um, working with our leadership, and then on the governance side of things, but also trying to maintain the operations as well. So like it's a lot on one plate. So one
Hmm.
of like my goal, if things work out in the way it is supporting administration operations with a new restructure. We have to do a restructure for things to be a little bit more effective. And those are things that I've always wanted to do, just the time, because the human capacity is just not there. We don't have enough people, we don't have enough time, we don't have enough resources to get what we know we need to get done. So just being able to identify that, it makes me realize I got to get back to writing proposals. I need to start getting more funding in. But how do I do that when I'm just doing the day to day and barely staying afloat?
Hmm.
So I have a lot of ideas, a lot of thoughts on how we're going to do that.
Yeah, I like that. The idea of restructuring. Because like in a corporation, every 4 to 5 years you need to restructure. How you do things to keep up to date with the
Yeah.
market, and just how to refine things and get better. So that's great to hear. So the next question is, what do you believe are the most pressing issues that our people are facing on the reserve and also off the reserve?
Oh, okay. I think what impacts everyone is going to be the underfunding. The underfunding that we currently receive from the federal government. We don't receive enough in our capital infrastructure, our housing, even our education, um, um, our social development, like every area. It's so underfunded that we need to start thinking outside of that. Not that we'd ever let the federal government off the hook for what I believe that is owed to us.
Hmm.
We need to start being more creative, because those areas are so underfunded. We can only perform to our abilities, and that's based on what our funding allows for. So if there's more services that's required, well, then we usually need human capacity to fulfill those particular services. And what do we need to bring in that human capacity? Well, we need funds. We need funds to pay people, good qualified people, and the programming that needs to come with that. Everything comes at a cost. And so when we're underfunded in the way that we are, we're not able to address the needs that our community faces. So post-secondary, for instance, like that's one thing I can speak very, very confidently about. We're not receiving the amounts that we should be in comparison to the number of applicants that come in.
Hmm.
Like currently we're funding 43 students when really we have about 76 applicants that come in. So that's very difficult to have to sit there and see, and trying to determine how do we not that we have to pick and choose. We have a very good policy around that, so it really helps to determine who the ones that are going to be funded. But it's just the ideal situation would be that we fund everybody. And again, I'm such an advocate for post secondary, because I think that helps our people to momentum and grow and heal. Because what that allows for is empowerment. It allows for further growth in the area of education and knowledge. I know that's not the only way, but it is a
Hmm.
way. Um, but to just give everybody an opportunity to go to school to better themselves if that's what they choose to do. So that's
Yes.
areas.
Do you know? I don't know if you can answer this question, but does the band pay for trade school?
They do. Yep, they do.
Oh,
They do through
that's
the
nice.
post-secondary program. Yep. Yeah, we also
Okay.
have the employment and trades and skills, um, and that is through our SciTag program. But you have to be on reserve, and so this is what we've been hearing through our engagements. Because today we've just completed our fourth engagement with the Prince Albert area and have heard from members, and it's always about, what about us urban members? Everything and services and
Yes.
programs
What
are
about
always
me?
for, yeah, exactly, right? And so, how do we know what about you if we're not engaging with you, right? So that's what we're doing, is going out there and listening to what is it our urban members, what do they need? Their needs are maybe different than what our needs are on the reserve. Like we need to be able to have an open mind about all of it, because we don't know what urbans want. And I don't even like to say that word urbans, because ultimately at the end of the day we're all community members, and that's how it should be. We should all be treated fairly, e- equal.
Yeah.
But we also need to know that there are different needs as well. So how do we know what that is? And that's, we got to listen to you. We have to engage it.
Yeah. And and one of the things as an urban member is that we understand, like, we have more access to um jobs. We have more access to things when we live in the city. So like when I think about, you know, poor me, why isn't the band giving me anything? I also understand that there's people on the reserve, or I should say not reserve, our nation. There's people on our nation who don't have it as good as I do, you know, and so they need like a helping hand up.
Yeah.
But not to say that us who live in the urban centers, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, there'll be something in place for us. Not everybody needs it, but it'd be nice to know, like, just in case if we
Yeah.
did need assistance in some sort of way, that would be available. And it sounds like that's things that you've been discussing on your campaign trail. So
We have been. You're right, Conroy. Those are those are the comments that we are hearing, right? And we don't have the answer for everything, but what we've been doing is meeting quite a bit on what can we do? What do we have? What can we do? Well, for one thing, we have opportunities knocking at our door. Economic development is huge right now. There is so much opportunity sitting there for Piapot. And my thought is that, okay, so we do have some of our entities that we do rely on for the own source revenue. However, the reality is that own source revenue has decreased significantly based on a number of factors.
Hmm.
The limited tobacco sales, the COVID, now the contraband tobacco. There's just so many factors. Being in a saturated market, where Pipe Creelan is not the only First Nations gas bar that is in Regina any longer, right? So we have to think outside the box. We really, really do, and start looking at things differently to see what else can we do to bring in our own source revenue. Again, there's opportunities there that are knocking at our door. Let's increase those revenues. Let's look at what program services are underfunded. Okay, let's inject that there. How do we now make it fair for our urban members, because they have different needs, and and some of the things that were brought up was housing. How do we help our urban members with housing? How do we help our urban members with more sports and recreation for their children?
Hmm.
How do we ensure that we're supporting them through post-secondary or even for employment aspects? Like, there's just so many needs that I know that we can address, but we have to have a good plan in place. We have to take advantage of those opportunities. We also have to have a good plan to address or achieve what we're looking at, but also we have to maintain that engagement that we currently have started with our members, because our members are our stakeholders. They're the ones that have to tell us what we should be focused on and what direction we're going to go, because that is essentially what the job is as a leader. Is you're in a servant role. And I think to be in a role such as this, and it kind of goes back 360 back to the first question of why do we think that we're suited? Why do I think I'm suited for the role? Is because I have passion. I have great grand ideas, and they're not out there. I think about how do we achieve it. There's one thing that I do know with some people is they're great visionaries, but if they don't know how to get to that point, then it's really difficult. But you also need to have a good team to get to that end goal, or to achieve what we're looking at. But again, it starts with community. It starts with engagement. It starts from listening. We have to listen to our members and what they want to do.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you seem really enthusiastic and passionate. Um,
You said too
you
much.
know, no, 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 it's not. Because people like to hear that, right? Like nobody's good at their job if they don't like their job,
Yeah.
right? So it's good for people to be not compassionate, but passionate and have enthusiasm. Because I feel like on a team, when people are enthusiastic, it helps everybody else to kind of have a better day. When you're having a better day, you're more productive.
Yeah.
So it all kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So the next question is, how familiar are you with the history and culture and our traditions of our nation?
Okay. So I'll never know everything. I'll be the first, or as many may have mentioned or stated before. I know nothing, but I try though. I've lived on Pipe Mine right up until I was about 19. Then I moved to work and then go to school. I moved back for a little bit. I actually have been always back and forth with Pipeot and
Yeah.
Regina. But I think where it really starts from for me is knowing my own direct lineage, and that being my direct lineage consists of my great grandfather being Chief Musqua, who happened to be Chief Piapot of Scopios. And so
Mm.
after Chief Piapot had passed, Chief Musqua then became chief, and he was chief for 26 years. And he and his wife had raised my great grandmother, my Kokum Victoria, because her parents had died at a young age. And just knowing that there was a lot of tradition and teaching that was instilled with her, that has also been passed on to my uncles and my dad. My dad is the younger of the generation before me, but there's a lot that he's come to learn from when he remembers his Kokum being alive. And so he's been able to teach us what he's come to know as well. And I think it's been enough that it's allowed for me to be grounded and to have the particular values that I have right now, and that's to be humble, to to move with integrity, and um, when we say we're going to do something, do it, and be trustworthy and respectful, and being kind, being loving. And I look at those values as in those are basic values, but also realizing that not everybody is taught those things either. So those are just, the values of what it is. But as far as for myself, since I was maybe a young teenager, maybe more of a preteen, that's when I started to explore a little bit further about who our culture was, or our culture is, through ceremony. So I went to
Hmm.
ceremonies when I was that young. Um, uh, have actively participated in our big lodge and our winter ceremony. I'm now in the position now to teach my children too. I have a 22-year-old who's very actively involved in some of our ceremonies. So being very supportive to him and his learning and his growth and his development. And I'm so grateful to those mentors that are around him that are taking the time to teach him. So I I'm not going to ever say I know it all because I have a lot to learn. I absolutely do. But I try my best to take the time to sit and listen and try to understand some of these teachings. And of course, we're all going to, make a mistake here or there, but we also never claim to ever be perfect by any means. But I think one of the greatest values that I've been taught from my dad is that we always try the best that we can. Always try your best. That's all. That's all that anybody could ever ask for, is just trying your best, and with what we have. So coming to understand,
Definitely agree.
so coming to understand a little bit of Piapot, rich culture. We have a very rich culture,
Hmm.
our Nehio Poatak. And then just hearing some of the stories growing up too. Going to school at Piapot, I remember some of the stories that late Cookham Helen had told when we were just little kids. That was always something that stuck with me. And then just hearing, listening, and not realizing that we're being taught, just being amongst the community, that we're being taught teachings without our realization of it. But I think being in the community really helps. So in doing that, that also is a passion for me to stay connected with our post-secondary students, even if they went on before, because there's a bit of a disconnect at times. And
Hmm.
this is where you're from. You're more than welcome always to come home. Come home, learn, understand, be connected if you want. I don't ever want to force anything upon anybody, but I know that according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there's always a need for belonging, right? And
Yeah.
so
Acceptance.
acceptance, exactly, love, having that strong foundation there, I think is really important for people. So sorry, I'm just rambling. Carry on, Conroy.
No, I'm here to learn.
Okay.
Really, I am. Um, what was I gonna say? Oh, I'm not sure if you're going like if you win the election, if you're gonna be taking on the schooling portfolio, but I'm really hoping that they can start introducing some literature about the stories of Chief Pie Pot, because we've all heard those stories, but and there's some in books and things like that. But I think it'd be great for us to have like, some of the elders tell what they heard, and
Yeah.
really having like a good catalog of those stories, and maybe even like some places that are on our First Nation, like pivotal places that our great chief liked, or plant medicine, things like that. So.
Absolutely. Yes, you're absolutely right. I think that is a really good suggestion that I think is going to help develop a pride and a sense of belonging for a lot of our children, not only our children, but even our adults. If we can create a space, not just within a school, but a space of our history. Uh,
Yeah,
you
and all
know,
the families, because we do have multiple families, and I know there's history attached to each family. So.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And then not only that, but the traditional lands within on the reserve and
Hmm.
those burials. So some of that even starts with the land use planning. And I know that our lands department was working on just that. That was going to be able to identify some of those sacred burials that some of us may not be aware of, or um, just the land in general. I think is very necessary to understand part of the history, but also, Conrad, I'm not sure if you're aware, but we do have a traditional land use book. Have you seen that book yet?
Really?
Yeah, we
No.
do. I actually do have a book. So this was probably about 4 years ago, and it's a big, thick book. I don't have it right now. It's a hardcover book, and it is a pipeline. And there's a lot of history from a lot of our elders who've gone on now, And the interview at the time, his name is Jim Tanner. And he came because I remember at that time because it was one of the council that had headed that whole entire project. So there was a book, there's a published book that's created and developed through that. And though there is some oral histories in that book, but I am in 100% agreement to what you're saying, Conroy. I think we need to put some focus into the development of the curriculum that maybe would include the histories of Piapot, his people, our people. Um, I think that would just bring a lot of pride and a sense of belonging to us. That actually might even address some of the healing that we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
I say we because it's not just one person; it's the community as a whole. Um,
Yes, and we're all family. So
exactly. We're all related in some way, shape, or form, some way. So
yes, yes.
I um I have actually talked with one of the elders some time back. This was even before I started working for Pipeline. That was a vision that he had, that he would wanted to see, is having like a library of just Pipewat's history, along with the artifacts that currently sit in the Oxbow Museum. There's things there that belong to Pipewat and their family. I believe their family names associated with it. But I was also advised we leave that there until we're ready to take that on, because at least we know that they're sitting in a safe place at this time. So there
Mm-hmm.
is, for me personally, I do believe we need to bring those artifacts home to our people and display them. Also consult with the families. Do it in a proper way, of course. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about where we could potentially go.
I
Some
like that. Like this election has made me realize like just the chance for regrowth for our community. Like a new start. And I'm really hoping like old grudges and all these things like that eventually takes a back seat and we're more focused on the present and the future. Right. That's my hope, anyways. But I'm not in power or control. I'm just a basic voter, I should say, or a band member.
but you
So the
are
next,
important, Conroy. What
thank
you
you,
say is very valuable. So thank you for
thank
sharing
you,
your
thank you.
thoughts. Mhm.
So, how do you plan on engaging and educating the common band members, especially as urban band members, uh, on like what's happening on the nation and like what decisions are taking place, so we can feel like included?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think that what first and foremost, as sitting in a leadership position, is if we don't know enough about a particular topic, that I think it's our responsibility to go and find it out, to do the research, to really understand, so that we can communicate it effectively to someone else, so that they understand just as we do.
Hmm.
It's an onus on leadership to do that for themselves. So that's on a personal level. The other aspect to that would be is I think we need to have more membership meetings. More, I mean, start because I don't know if we've ever had membership meetings. Not in the last little while, anyways. So to be able to respond to our membership when they have any questions, but also not only that, but even to engage them. Like I said, that our members are our stakeholders. They're the ones that
Hmm.
are need to know. They are the ones that would have put leadership into position. Therefore, there's an accountability aspect, a transparency aspect that we need to report back to membership. So how do we do that? I honestly believe, and I've said this numerous times, is that we need to inject funds into a department of communications. Communications is huge. You have internal, you have external, you have
Yes.
like there's so many aspects to communications that if there can be a small department of people to do just that, I think that'll alleviate a lot of misconception or misunderstanding of information, because it'll be put out there openly, publicly to our members. And I think I heard this at one point too, where, maybe we want to even go as far as creating our own portal, like our own membership portal, where it's just
Yes, I think that would
specifically
be excellent.
to our members. And that is it. We have it controlled by, your member. Here's your tree
Yeah.
number. Do a verification.
I'm
Take
a,
that.
I'm also a tech genius. I already know how it's set that
Are you?
up.
Hey, well, Conroy, we're going to keep in touch with you if everything works out. Because really, I think that's going to be the most effective to keep members
Mm-hmm.
informed, is being able to, but that's a day-to-day thing. It has to happen continuously, and to put that on someone like, say, the band administrator, that just is impossible. Because when,
Yeah.
like,
So
it's
like,
just, there's a reality here, and it's that there's not enough time, not enough time in the day or capacity within to do all of that work that we know we need to have done in place. But it takes funds to do that too, right? We can't just.
yes, yes. So like, I run a business, and I've been running it for about 15 years. And one of the things I always look at is like how do we become more efficient, but also reduce costs. And so when you create things like a portal, there's the front end costs, but then you don't have tied up administration costs because people just they go and they look for whatever they're looking for, a form or a document,
Yeah,
and they're the only ones that have access. And then there's a record that somebody actually came and took a document out or viewed it and things like that. And it really helps and it streamlines things. So I'm hoping that the nation can start to adopt some practices that would be similar to large corporations.
records management, to be able to find
I
information.
know you love that as an accountant. Like,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I have big dreams and ideas.
yeah,
But we need the implementation to get to that point. We need the outs like some time to actually develop those plans, to do just that. Um,
yeah. And I
and we have
often find it, oh, sorry.
no, that's okay.
Oh,
There you go.
I often find it, us that sit on the outside looking in when it comes to leadership is that we expect great change, but 4 years is not very long. Um, you know, so what I think about too is like, leadership, if they're super organized and efficient, 4 years is enough time to make some serious change.
It
But the
is.
reality is like, you need a little bit longer than 4 years. But hey, that's just my thoughts. But I'm gonna rush through the two more questions.
Okay.
And this is the big one. Everybody's always wanting to know this one. How will you ensure transparency and accountability? Now, I do understand you're not the decision maker in certain policies and procedures, but in
Hmm.
terms of being someone that would be a part of quorum, like
Hmm.
what would be some of the suggestions you would make to the chief?
Um, okay. So to ensure transparency, we have to ensure that we are providing report. We're
Mhm.
providing reports. So the ability to have a working team that has the ability to, first of all, develop the reports, and then also to provide report, physical, written, and then also being able to communicate that effectively to our membership. So that would speak to the area of transparency, and then not only reports, but just reporting everything that that leadership or administration or any area is doing, because our stakeholders again are our band members. We have a duty, a due diligence to do just that. That is part of the role, and I think we have to take a little bit more seriousness to that. um, I guess on the other hand, being accountable as well to doing what we say we're going to do. Okay.
Mhm.
So how do we do that then? Because there's a lot of times, and I'm even at fault of that, where I say I'm going to do something, but I end up actually running out of time and it doesn't get done. So I feel really bad about it. But and it's something that I know that on a personal level I have to work on. But as a whole, as a group, well, it comes together with good plans, good timelines, realistic timelines, making it realistic that this is what we're going to work on and working towards those particular action plans to achieve. And then that's that accountability piece, is that we're going to be accountable to what we say we're going to do, right?
Yes.
And then not only that, but we get that direction from the membership. That's what we're doing right now. We're going around and collecting. And I say we because it's not just me.
Yeah.
It's a group that of us that are working together with a common vision, and it's people that are educated and have that charisma and that passion, that motivation. They see greatness. They can see it just like I can. We can see our potentials as a Piapot First Nation and where we can go. We 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 know how to do it. We need to get there though.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so it's just providing report to our membership. All in all, reporting reports to our membership, either in the way of Zoom updates, whether it's town hall meetings, whether it's even just having open meetings as well, and just having that all available to our membership, I think would be better. But also utilizing a portal, I think, is very important, because on the other hand, we don't want our information out there publicly when it doesn't pertain to
Yes.
the world. We actually
Yeah.
have to safeguard that a little bit too. So we have to be mindful on where our information is going to go. So maybe it is just a membership within this portal, and only members can be in there. You
Yeah.
know. So oh, there's a lot that we can do. I'm
I'm excited. I
good.
really am. Now, this one is near and dear to my heart. Is 1 second, please. How will you help to create an environment that will foster healing and unity on our nation?
Oh, I put a lot of thought into this particular question because there's so much that has to be done. But I think ultimately, and we can't force people to look within themselves, because ultimately it starts within ourselves,
Hmm.
where we can work outside of that. But I think to be able to foster that, we have to be able to support that in our area of our health, providing the supports there. But I really, really like the concept of circles. That has done wonders for us in the last little while. And where it was first introduced, I've actually taken circle facilitation when I worked at the university, but I never implemented it. I just saw that in the last little while here, in last year with the school. Our school principal, Nicole Crow, started to implement circles. Actually, she's been doing it for a while, but she utilized that in the way of community engagement and obtaining feedback and direction for what they're going to do within the school. And I thought that was such an amazing way for us to momentum forward, because everybody gets an opportunity to say what they need to say, but also could be utilized in a healing aspect. And I think trust is a huge thing that we need to start to redevelop within our people. Try to eliminate some of those toxicities and the traumas. There's a lot of trauma that sits right now within our people, and we all know
Yes.
where that comes from. It's all the intergenerational trauma
Yeah.
from residential school, right? Impacts everybody in all ways. Parenting and ability, even learning. Just it's everything. So I did put a lot of thinking into this, and my thought was always, okay, well, if residential school did this to our people, our loss of language, our loss of our culture, our loss of our being, our abilities to be who we are, maybe it's time we go back and reverse that in some way, shape, or form through not residential school, but maybe in a different educational, not different educational system, but I think it has to start in education too within our young
Yes.
ones. Yeah, so I think I'm still thinking about that, but also I think it's something we have to take to the community and ask them, what do you think we need to do? And then we try and engage and have an understanding and maybe take some direction from them, and then we'll do our part to try to implement that. um, but it's a tough one. It is a tough one, but I think honestly it starts within. It does really start within, and if we can get people to look within themselves, that's a start.
I agree. And one of the things that I often hear when people talk about like healing a community, um, some people say like that's a monumental task. Are you sure you want to take that on? And I think when people at least have the desire to want to change things, I think that's a great start, because with that desire comes action from different places or inspiring other people. So we got 7 minutes.
Oh, good.
Would you like to answer another question, or do you want to do your campaign pitch?
Oh, let me see.
The last question, I'll tell you what the last question would be. Um, what would you want for our community in 8 years, just in general? And then what would you want the community to remember about your time on council?
hmm how would I take all those questions and combine it real fast? I'll see what I
Let's
can.
do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right. So, what I'd like to see in 8 years is I would like to see financial stability for our people, being able to address the needs of the community members that live on the reserve and the community members that live off reserve, continuing to engage and hear and listen and put plans in place to address what it is that they want. That's ultimately what I would like to see in 8 years. I
Mhm.
can't say what it is going to be because I don't know what the community wants. I want to get that from them first before I could speak on that. Um, what do I want to be known for is um, that Jayleen did the best she could. Despite the challenges, despite the toxicity, despite there's a lot that could bring me down already, and it's not just me, but even my teammates, the people around me. There's just so much toxicity and unhealthiness out there that, as much as we're trying to make a change and a difference for our people, those are things that are out of our control. And just knowing and understanding that we can only control what we can. So to be known for anything, it would just be that Jayleen did the best that she can, and hopefully there's some good things that happened during that time. Really, um, ultimately, it would be financial stability. They brought our band to financial stability, and it's healthier. Our community and our people are healthier because of the implementation of a lot of those action plans that they've developed, and we're in a good place. Our future generations will prosper because of what we're going to do today.
Yes.
Yes.
I think that should be no, really though. I think that's a great goal because, like, what do we leave for our kids and their kids?
Yeah.
I think sometimes community members, and it's normal. It's a human nature thing. We get stuck on our small circle
Yeah.
and forget there's many generations coming after us. So I
Mm-hmm.
really love to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and
My
this has
little
been
campaign.
a great interview.
Do I get a little bit of time for my
Yes,
campaign?
of course, yes.
I'll be really quick. Um, we need a team to achieve all that we're capable of doing. We need people at the table that can have the know-how, the ability,
Mhm.
the skill set, the education, the experience, and the knowledge to move things forward. Because when I look at it, that's 8 positions along with a chief. 8 positions that could be 8 positions that can do the work that needs to be done, as opposed to just relying it on, here, you guys take care of this and do it all. It doesn't work that way. We can't. Um, the team that I'm currently with right now, amazing, amazing people working very, very diligently from their heart. They're passionate. They are authentic. Everyone's just doing the best that they possibly can, and it's just a really good team. So it's not about me. I think it's about having a good team moving forward. That's how I see it. I think that's it. Really,
That's excellent.
Conroy, thank
Well,
you.
yes, thank you to the audience for viewing and supporting this podcast. We gently remind you to please love one another, be kind to each other, because the truth is we are literally all related in some way or some form. Thank you so much, Jayleen, and yeah, whenever I come home, I hope to sit and talk with you. It'd be
Yes.
nice.
Looking forward to it, Conroy. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Yeah, you too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.